Jessica Turner walked calmly down a quiet suburban street, a bag full of cash clutched tightly in her hands, unaware that tonight would change her life forever. The quiet suburban street seemed ordinary, lined with neat lawns and modest houses that reflected a sense of calm and routine. Cars parked along the curb, children's bicycles leaned against fences, and the faint smell of evening dinner wafted through the air. Among the serene surroundings, a woman in her early 30s drove slowly, her eyes scanning the neighborhood with a mixture of determination and unease. She was dressed simply, blending in with the ordinary lives around her, but beneath the calm exterior, a storm of desperation and obsession churned. In the passenger seat lay a worn bag, heavy with stacks of cash she had meticulously counted and concealed. Every bill represented a step closer to an unthinkable plan, one that could change lives forever if it succeeded or ruin hers completely if it failed. Her mind raced as she approached the house where she was supposed to meet someone who had promised a way to acquire a baby in exchange for money. Weeks of searching, contacting strangers online, and studying every possible option had led to this moment. She had grown increasingly anxious as the day approached, her normal routines disrupted by late nights and constant research. She rehearsed her actions mentally, imagining each step of the exchange, calculating the risks, and hoping her plan would unfold without interference. Every detail mattered: the timing, the tone of her movements, even the way she held the envelope containing the cash. She knew she was treading dangerous territory, but the compulsion driving her forward outweighed fear. As she parked her car a few houses away from the target location, she hesitated for a moment, taking in her surroundings. The streetlights cast long shadows, the quiet hum of distant traffic mingling with the chirping of crickets. Everything appeared normal, yet an undercurrent of tension made her pulse quicken. What she was about to attempt was illegal, morally fraught, and terrifying in its audacity. Unknown to her, eyes were already watching from hidden corners, cameras discreetly positioned, and officers moving silently to intercept her actions. The tip had come from someone concerned about messages she had sent online, offers of money for a child that sparked alarm. The authorities had taken every precaution, anticipating her moves and preparing to act the instant she crossed the line. She stepped out of her car, the envelope held close to her chest. Her hands shook slightly, betraying the calm she attempted to maintain. She adjusted her bag, making sure it appeared unremarkable, and walked with purpose toward the house. Each step was measured, calculated, yet every instinct screamed caution. The faint glow from inside the home hinted at the presence of someone waiting, and the sight of a small, empty crib through the window made her heart pound. She imagined the life she wanted to claim, a sense of ownership mixing with fear. The silence of the neighborhood contrasted sharply with the chaos in her mind, a tension building as she neared the door. With every second, the moment of truth drew nearer, a delicate and dangerous intersection of desperation, planning, and impending consequence that would soon unravel into a story no one could ignore. Her journey down the quiet street was more than a simple walk. It was the culmination of weeks of obsession, fear, and meticulous preparation. She had convinced herself that this was the only path, and with each step, she moved closer to crossing a line from which there would be no return. The ordinary neighborhood, with its calm facades and familiar sounds, concealed the extraordinary and chilling events about to unfold. Shadows stretched across her path as she approached the threshold, unaware that her every move was being watched, recorded, and prepared for intervention. The tension in the air was thick, almost tangible, as the quiet evening became the stage for a dramatic and shocking crime that would leave a lasting mark on everyone involved. The woman's hand hovered over the doorbell for a moment, her fingers trembling despite her best efforts to steady them. She glanced around nervously, scanning the quiet street for neighbors or passers-by who might notice her. Every shadow seemed suspicious, every flicker of movement a potential threat to her plan. The envelope in her bag felt heavier with each step, not because of the cash inside, but because of the weight of the consequences she could face if caught. She had imagined this moment countless times, but the reality was far more intense than she had anticipated. The air was thick with tension, every breath sharp and deliberate as she prepared to cross the threshold into a world of danger and risk. Inside the house, the faint scent of baby powder lingered, a reminder of innocence and the life she hoped to acquire. A small crib stood in the corner of a softly lit room, empty yet suggestive of the child who might soon occupy it. The atmosphere was eerily calm, as if time itself had slowed in anticipation of what was about to happen. She hesitated at the doorway, the weight of the envelope pressing against her chest, and for a brief moment doubt crept in. Fear mingled with desperation, a tangled mix that both paralyzed and propelled her forward. Every instinct screamed caution, but the compulsion driving her onward was stronger than reason. As she stepped closer, she thought about the people who had warned her against this path, those who might have tried to intervene if they knew the extent of her intentions. She had ignored warnings and rational thoughts, convinced that her plan was flawless. Now, standing on the threshold of the transaction, she realized that control was slipping. The calm, calculated demeanor she had cultivated began to crack, revealing a raw vulnerability beneath. The neighbors continued their routines, oblivious to the peril unfolding mere feet away, their ordinary lives starkly contrasting with the tension of the room she was about to enter. Unseen by her, officers positioned outside were alert, watching every subtle movement, every shift in her posture. Cameras recorded silently, capturing her every action in meticulous detail. She was unaware that she was already in a trap, that the net had been drawn tightly around her before she even crossed the threshold. The officers had rehearsed this moment, knowing that her desperation could lead to unpredictable reactions. Their presence was invisible, but it shaped the unfolding events, adding an invisible layer of suspense and danger. Her eyes fell on the crib again, and a surge of emotion overcame her. Hope, longing, fear, and urgency intertwined. She moved closer to place the envelope in a designated spot, unaware that the very act of reaching forward was the moment officers had anticipated. Her pulse quickened, each beat echoing in her ears, and she felt as if time had slowed to a crawl. The calm of the neighborhood, the faint hum of distant traffic, the rustle of leaves outside, all contrasted sharply with the intensity building inside her. In that instant, every calculated step, every thought of caution collided with the stark reality of her actions. The room seemed smaller, the air heavier, and the weight of what she was attempting pressed down on her chest with a force that no amount of preparation could mitigate. Her plan, which had seemed foolproof, was about to confront the unpredictable consequences that come with crossing moral and legal boundaries, setting the stage for the shocking events that would follow. The moment she reached for the envelope, the air shifted. The quiet suburban calm was shattered as officers stepped forward from their hidden positions, their presence sudden and authoritative. Panic surged through her as she realized the situation had been anticipated from the start. Her carefully planned exchange, rehearsed in every detail, collapsed instantly. Hands shaking uncontrollably, she tried to pull back, but the officers were swift, moving with precision to secure the evidence and ensure her compliance. The envelope containing the cash was seized immediately, its contents now a key piece of the unfolding legal case. Fear and disbelief etched across her face. She struggled against the reality that every move she had made had been observed and recorded. Investigators quickly began piecing together her motives, tracing a path that led from curiosity and desire to desperation and criminal intent. The woman's background revealed a series of personal struggles that made the situation more complex. Financial instability, failed relationships, and a deep yearning for motherhood that had become obsessive. It was a pattern that had escalated over months, culminating in the extreme measures she had taken that evening. As authorities combed through her online activity, emails, and messages, the depth of her planning became evident. She had explored multiple channels, reached out to strangers, and researched methods that crossed every legal and moral boundary. Each discovery added layers to the story, revealing a woman who was at once ordinary in appearance but extraordinary in her obsession and recklessness. The community reacted with shock and disbelief as news of the arrest spread. Neighbors who had seen her daily routines, waved in passing, or exchanged polite greetings, struggled to reconcile the image of the friendly, unassuming woman with the gravity of her actions. Social media amplified the story, and the search for understanding led many to dig deeper into her past. Fragments of her life came to light, posts expressing longing, financial hardship, and dreams of motherhood, painting a portrait of someone whose desperation had driven her to an unimaginable act. Even those close to her admitted they had noticed warning signs, but had never imagined she could take such drastic steps. The legal implications of her actions became clear almost immediately. Attempting to purchase a child was a serious crime, carrying severe penalties and sparking widespread public concern. Prosecutors emphasized the premeditated nature of her actions, highlighting how meticulously she had planned the illegal transaction. Psychologists were called upon to analyze her behavior, offering insights into the mind of a person driven to commit a crime by obsession, longing, and distorted reasoning. The tension between understanding her as a troubled individual and holding her accountable for a serious criminal act became a focal point of public discussion. As the investigation unfolded, each revelation deepened the intrigue. The officers' recordings and surveillance provided undeniable proof of her intent, while the personal history uncovered by authorities offered a complex picture of motive. The woman's struggle, fear, and eventual capture revealed the human dimension behind the shocking crime. The story, which began on a quiet suburban street, now commanded national attention, becoming a cautionary tale about the lengths desperation can drive a person, the unforeseen consequences of obsessive desire, and the vigilant work of authorities who ensured that a potentially tragic outcome was prevented at the last moment. The legal proceedings that followed the arrest became a focal point for national attention, drawing reporters, community members, and legal experts alike. Courtrooms filled with spectators curious to understand how an ordinary-looking woman could attempt a crime so shocking. Prosecutors meticulously laid out the evidence, painting a picture of premeditation and obsession. The envelope of cash, carefully counted and ready for exchange, was presented as the centerpiece of her intent. Alongside it, the records of online communications, emails, and text messages revealed a consistent pattern. She had researched methods, reached out to strangers, and sought ways to obtain a child without consent. The accumulation of evidence left little room for doubt about the seriousness and deliberate nature of her actions. Inside the courtroom, the woman appeared composed, yet tense, alternating between moments of defiance and visible anxiety. Her demeanor reflected the inner turmoil of someone who had acted out of desperation, yet faced the undeniable consequences of breaking the law. Observers noted the stark contrast between her ordinary appearance and the gravity of the crime, which only heightened the sense of suspense surrounding the case. Psychologists and legal experts weighed in, trying to explain the mindset that could drive a person to attempt such an act. Discussions centered on the intersection of mental health struggles, personal desperation, and moral boundaries. Some argued that her actions were the result of overwhelming pressure and psychological distress, while others emphasized accountability and the potential danger to a child in such a scenario. The courtroom drama unfolded with unexpected twists. Witnesses who had been aware of her plans testified, revealing the tension between secrecy, loyalty, and fear of repercussions. Friends, acquaintances, and neighbors painted a picture of someone whose life had been outwardly normal, but inwardly consumed by obsession and longing. The prosecution highlighted these details to underscore the premeditated and dangerous nature of her attempts. Meanwhile, her legal team sought to present mitigating factors, including emotional distress, financial hardship, and the intense desire for motherhood, hoping to influence sentencing or sway perception. Media coverage intensified, with television segments, news articles, and social media posts dissecting every aspect of the case. Viewers were drawn to the narrative of an ordinary woman undertaking extraordinary and illegal measures, a story that combined human drama with criminal intrigue. The trial became not only a legal proceeding, but also a public exploration of ethics, psychology, and the consequences of unchecked desperation. Analysts debated the social pressures and personal circumstances that might push someone to cross moral and legal lines, while still acknowledging the inherent danger in her actions. As the hearings progressed, the stakes grew higher. The judge emphasized the seriousness of the offense, reminding everyone in the courtroom that the law existed to protect the vulnerable and prevent harm. Every piece of evidence, every testimony, and every expert opinion contributed to a layered understanding of the case. The narrative extended beyond the courtroom, prompting discussions about the responsibility of communities to intervene when warning signs appear, the role of mental health support, and the vigilance required to prevent exploitation. What had begun as a clandestine attempt to acquire a child became a profound examination of human behavior, the consequences of extreme choices, and the complex interplay between law, morality, and desperation. The verdict arrived after days of intense deliberation, leaving the courtroom and the surrounding community in stunned silence. She was convicted of attempted child trafficking, a charge that carried severe consequences and reflected the seriousness of her actions. As the gavel fell, the reality of her situation became undeniable. The woman, who had once walked the quiet streets of her suburban neighborhood with a bag of cash and a desperate plan, was now facing the full weight of the law. The arrest, trial, and conviction sent shockwaves far beyond the immediate community, drawing attention from media outlets nationwide and sparking conversations about morality, desperation, and the limits of human behavior. In the weeks following the verdict, people struggled to reconcile the ordinary image of the woman with the extraordinary nature of her crime. Neighbors recalled casual encounters, simple greetings, and everyday interactions that now seemed layered with unseen tension. Friends and acquaintances revisited memories, trying to piece together subtle signs of distress or obsession they had missed. Online discussions proliferated, dissecting the events, her motives, and the broader implications of her actions. Some expressed sympathy for her struggles, noting the pressures of personal hardship and emotional longing, while others emphasized the danger inherent in attempting to acquire a child illegally. Authorities used the case as a platform to educate the public about the risks of illegal online activity and the importance of vigilance in protecting vulnerable populations. The investigation had revealed the intricate steps she had taken to plan her crime, from online communications to careful arrangements for payment. Law enforcement agencies stressed that the outcome, her arrest before any harm could occur, highlighted the effectiveness of proactive intervention. The story served as a cautionary tale, demonstrating how desperation, unchecked obsession, and blurred moral boundaries could escalate into criminal behavior. The woman's personal life became the subject of scrutiny, revealing a complex mix of hardship, longing, and flawed decision-making. Financial instability, failed relationships, and an obsessive desire for motherhood had all contributed to her actions. Psychologists and social commentators analyzed her behavior, attempting to explain the psychological forces at play. While her conviction underscored accountability, it also raised questions about mental health support, societal pressures, and the circumstances that can drive a person to cross ethical and legal lines. The narrative became a lens through which broader social issues were examined, from community responsibility to the challenges of identifying and addressing warning signs before they escalate. Even after her sentencing, the case continued to resonate. The community reflected on the fragility of appearances, realizing that ordinary lives can conceal extraordinary desperation. Conversations about prevention, intervention, and the protection of children remained ongoing, fueled by the dramatic and unsettling nature of the events. The woman's actions, arrest, and conviction became a reference point in discussions about crime, morality, and human behavior, serving as a reminder of the unpredictable consequences of obsession and the importance of vigilance. Ultimately, the story left a lasting impression, a cautionary tale of how desperation can drive people to unimaginable acts, the vigilance required to prevent harm, and the enduring impact of choices made in moments of obsession and moral compromise.